All right, thanks for joining our webinar today. We're going to be talking about reporting, working with Member365, Excel, and AI. And as many of you may know, I am Joel. I'm a customer success coach, and I'm all about seeing potential and making it a reality. So with that in mind, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen there, and I will get to them as we go through if I can. If not, we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. As is always the case with our webinars, the recording will be posted to YouTube in a day or two, and you can go back there and see anything you missed, or if you weren't able to make the presentation today, then it'll be there for you. So today we will be talking about the member statistics and built-in reports, and then we'll take a high-level look at some of the other reports and leave time for questions as we go through those reports in case anyone has any specific questions. And then we'll look at exporting a few reports to Excel, how easy that is, and then working with AI to get formulas that you want for your Excel document. So I'm not an Excel expert. I'm also not an AI expert, but I'm able to work with AI to get Excel to do what I want it to do so that some of the things that I may have struggled a lot more with before AI, I can now do in Excel. So I'm going to share some of that with you. And we'll look at the best practices as far as reporting and working with AI and Excel goes. And again, leave time for questions. Without further ado, let's jump in. Just going to pull up the page here. All right. And we will start on the Member365 dashboard and go to the member statistics page. So if we just go to membership and then statistics, this is the reporting hub of Member365. So you can get a high level overview of everything from your active members and your lapsed members to recent activities such as new memberships or recent renewals. Just as a note, it's generally good practice, or kind of the numbers you're aiming for is to have an 80-20 relationship between your recent renewals and your new memberships. So here we've got a 70-30, but that is something that is generally suggested to aim for, but obviously different organizations are going to have different numbers based on what your model looks like. One thing that's important to note in here is this drop-down menu that has all of the built-in reports. And you'll see there's an active members and an active membership report. These are often confused. Basically, the difference is because in Member365, you can have, or a member can have multiple memberships. So they're going to be on this active members report once, but they might have multiple active memberships. So they're going to be on that report multiple times. So if we go to that report, for example, and search Fred Rogers, we'll see that he comes up 3 times on this report in different categories. So he has 3 different memberships. So he shows up on that report 3 different times. And we jump back to the membership statistics page, we'll see that our active members versus our active memberships, those numbers are different, and the active memberships is always going to be higher. And sorry, I'm just looking at my notes over here to make sure I'm going through all of the reports that I want to. Another important report here, or another useful one, is the member count report. So this is going to give you a count of your membership based on location at a given time. So you put in the date, and so we got a date exactly 3 years ago, and we can see exactly how many members were in our organization at that time. So if we use this monthly, we're able to get a good sense of the trend of how our membership is growing or how it wavers from month to month or seasonally or that kind of thing. And I'm just going to drag this over here and maximize it so I can see the Q&A. Make sure I'm answering questions as we go. All right, looks like we are good for now. I'll continue along, jump back to the member statistics page. And another thing I want to draw attention to is this non-members here. So you can see we have a lot of non-members, especially compared to our active members. This might be a hint for us that we should be looking at removing some people from our database, especially if we're getting close to our total amount of contacts. In this case, we are still well below, so it's not as much of a concern. But if we were nearing that total contact or we were over it and we saw that we had a lot of non-members, then what we might want to do is go to the report in contacts here. So if we go contacts, report, and go to the email consent report. And sorry, I went to the wrong spot. We go reports, email, and email consent. And then we might want to export our expressed consent and our implied consent report, and then cross-reference that with an exported non-members report. And if they are non-members and we don't have consent to email them, then hence there's not a lot of reason to have them in the system. Obviously, again, your organization may have specific reasons that you're keeping track of people that you're not emailing, but for the most part, if they're not getting anything from the membership and you can't email them anything, then those might be people that you want to delete. And anyone that you have deleted is going to show up on the soft deleted contacts report. So that was contacts reports, soft deleted contacts. And now they're no longer going to count towards your contacts, but their emails are still going to be in the system loosely. You're not going to be able to find them by searching, but if you tried to add someone with this email, it's going to say that the email is already in the system. If you want to get them completely out of the system, then we can permanently delete them from here. And a commonly requested feature is that we can mass delete these. Right now, that's not possible, but it is something that we've been working on and expect to be able to do, where you can check all of the people that you want to delete. And that should be hopefully released in the next couple of days, I hear, but I'm crossing my fingers for next week. And I just saw the chat here. I'm going to check that out. Yeah, so the question is, are there custom reports that we can set up so we're not having to cross-reference separate spreadsheets? So right now there are not custom reports. Okay, and sorry, there's a follow-up question. So right now there are not custom reports for that specifically. That's one of the things I'm going to be showing you with AI. If you wanted to look at a custom report, then you can talk to either your account manager or the success team, and we can look at implementing that. More broadly, custom reports that can integrate queries from multiple parts of the database would be really helpful. Yeah, no, that's great feedback. So just to reiterate that, custom reports that can integrate queries from multiple parts of the database would be really helpful. That is being reiterated as well. So that's good to know. And I'll make sure that our team knows that. Obviously, as YouTube will point out right now, that's not super possible. The kind of closest we can get to custom report building is through the list builder. But again, you're probably going to be exporting a list and cross-referencing it with things to get the exact information that you want. But just to briefly show you how the list builder works, there is a whole webinar on this next week. But if we come in and create a list, name it what we want, and hit continue, then we can pull any of this information. So if we want a way that a form was filled out, we want to go contact forms. Let's say we want to know people who are able to volunteer for a certain event. Let's say or food and beverage at a certain event. So we go contact forms and then find the event that we're looking for. Let's say the annual conference. So we've got 4 people that are interested in food and beverage at the annual conference, but maybe we want to make sure that they are also members or active members. So we can go to membership status, make sure they're active, and only 2 of those are active members. So we can get a report of our active members that are interested in food and beverage at the annual conference by using the list builder. But again, if we wanted to cross-reference this with email consent, then that's going to be something that has to happen outside Member365 for the time being. And the Q&A is lighting up. Oh, sorry. Just need to mark them as answered so that I'm notified as more come up. But that is very brief introduction to the list builder. And now let's look at the shared tag report is one that is often helpful for people. So the contacts, reports, and shared tag report or shared tags. So this is going to give you a list of all of the tags that people in Member365 have. And of course, we can look at certain categories or certain specific tags if we want to do that. And then we can export this list as well. And this is another list that I've helped some clients in the past use AI cross-referencing with. So it's another example that I've got set up for us to look at today. And just moving along here in the email campaign, you're going to have your reports, so your analytics, which is opens, clicks, and unsubscribes. Email bounces, so you're going to be able to see if people or if your emails aren't being sent, and whether that is because the email is wrong or because there's a security that's blocking it, that sort of thing. You'll get some reasons, and whether it's a soft or a hard bounce. So hard means you're not going to be able to push it through. Soft means that you can push that email through saying, no, I know that this email is valid. Please send it through. And also related to emails, if you come over to reports, you've got emails and you've got those opt-outs, consent, and incomplete e-blast reports as well. For events, you can come either to event reports or event manage events and click on the report button, which is the one that looks like a little chart. And you can see all the information you can get across here. So you can see who has registered. You can get an overview of the tickets, the meal plans, work your way across there. You can see anyone that has withdrawn from this event, some financials specifically for this event, your attendance. So if you need to mark people attended for the event, if they're automatically going to be marked as attended, obviously they're all going to be yes, but you can come through and mark them. One of the places you can access your name badges. Of course, you can also do that here. And then if you have a wait list to manage, that's here as well. Or if you need to import registration information. So for example, if you had a third-party registration through Zoom and you wanted to import them into here so that you were tracking them in here and marking them as attended in here, then you can import them in here as well. For your financial reports, the two most common ones I see used are the accounts receivable. So as people are sending checks or cash or that sort of thing, we can mark their invoices as paid. And the other one is the revenue report. Of course, that's very important for financials. So you can export this report based on date, as well as using your general ledger system, the different accounts that you've set up, or your different codes you've set up. If you want to export them all, you can, or if you're just looking for event-related revenue, we can do that as well. Okay. Related to reports in the module section here is the form responses. So often you want to get an overview of form responses. So if you come into the modules, forms, form responses, and then click on the form you're looking for. So maybe we want to look at that volunteer form that we looked at earlier, that we were using the list builder to pull from. We can see everyone that has filled out that form. We can view individual responses, or we can export this form to Excel. And then of course, the reports is the last module here. And this is basically just another way to access reports that are accessible through these. There are some variables like the email, but overall, these are reports that, again, you can access other ways. So looking at the reports, you'll see this is on the form responses. You've got this export to Excel button. On the list builder, you have that export to Excel button. And basically, anytime you're looking at a report, there's going to be that export to Excel, and that's how you're going to get it into Excel. And then from Excel, let's pull up an Excel document here that kind of worked with before here, the webinar here. And so I exported a shared tags report, and it has a lot of information on the person across the top here, a lot of information that may or may not be useful, but for me, it just creates a lot of noise. So I pared it down just to the basic information that I thought was most relevant. The first and last name, of course, the email address that's super important, phone number if we wanted to be contacting them for whatever reason. And then you'll see with the shared tags report, it exports each tag as a column. And sometimes that can be great. Other times it's not super helpful. So what I did, and let me pull up the AI here. I like to use Gemini. I do bounce between them from time to time, and you can use whatever you want to have. Use Copilot for this same sort of task in the past, so they all will work as long as we know how to use them. And sorry, I pulled up the wrong page. Here we go. So with AI, the first thing I wanted to do was just let it know what I'm looking for support with. So can you help me with Excel formulas? And it gave me a lot of information that honestly I didn't even read because I just wanted to make sure I was giving it the context at first. And then it said, tell me what you're working on. And so then this is where I started to give it some information. I wanted to get a list of all of the tags that were in the range of columns to just one column in a comma separated list. And so I asked it to do that. It gave me the formula. I copied that, put it in the spreadsheet, and got this list of all of the tags. So this is similar to what it looks like on Member365. But then from here, I wanted to rank the tags. So I was imagining I wanted to email all these people that came to an event, and I wanted to send them specific emails depending on what tag they had or what role they played at that event, but I only wanted to send them one email. So some people might have been a leader and a speaker. Some people might have been human resource and a speaker and a leader. So I came up with this ranking system in my head and said, these are the ranks that are the order that I want to put people in and say this is their main tag because I'm going to be using those lists to send them a specific email. And so again, we'll just pull up Gemini and I tried to prompt it to create this. So I said, can you write a formula that goes to the list and only returns one value? I want the top value in this order. And it gave me this formula. I copied the formula and put it in Excel, and it didn't do what I wanted it to. So then I just said, that's not quite what I'm looking for, and rephrased. So the purpose of doing it this way was showing that you're not always going to get the right answer right away. If you are a prompt engineer, then you'll be great at getting the values that you're looking for and the formulas. But if you're like me and you're just learning, it's okay to make mistakes. And you can always go back and say, no, that's not quite what I was looking for, and try to clarify. And then it'll give you a new formula. You can use that new formula and see if that works. So in this case, it did give me the formula that gave me my top tag for each person here. And then in terms of cross-referencing and using AI, and sorry, I'm just going to make sure I'm not missing any questions here. Looks like we're still okay. In terms of cross-referencing with AI, you're going to want to bring the sheets into the same document. So when you export, it's always going to create a new Excel document. So I exported my implied consent form, my express consent form, and then I created a new form called total consent. And again, we'll pull up Gemini just to see how we got it to bring everything together. So I used a different chat for this example. And this time I gave it as much context as I could from the very beginning. And this is generally the best way to do it because the more context it has, the more it's going to be able to help you. So I said, I have two sheets in Excel, told them what they're called, and then I told it what I wanted it to be able to do. So basically said, I want to see if someone is in both of these lists, I'm going to want to pull them into a new list that I can then I'll be able to pull out, and I can cross-reference that list with my non-members list, which I didn't do in Excel this time, but that would be the next step. And then I have my contacts that could be ready to be deleted. So from there, it gave me a step-by-step guide, and I noticed that it had said if there was going to be duplicates within Sheets, which I knew there wouldn't be based on the export from Member365. So I said there's not going to be that. And it gave me this new guide that's a lot simpler. And that's what I was looking for. And so then I was able to put these in to Excel. And there's little things that you want to be looking for. So this is saying E1. I know that in Excel, E1 is going to be my header column. So if we look at implied, E1 is the header email. So when I'm putting the formula into Excel, I want to replace E1 with E2. And that's something I can ask AI to do, or if it's just a small change like that, then I can do it myself. And that's how I did it there. And then if you are putting a formula in and you want it to run down the whole column, I'll just put a simple formula in. Let's say equals that. So this is just going to duplicate that column. It's a very simple formula, but if I want to run it down the whole column, I can easily do that just by double clicking that little square there, and that'll run it down the whole column. So that's helpful for once you bring the formula over to Excel. And another thing, because you want them all to be in the same document, the sheets, when you are bringing them over, you can copy the whole sheet just by clicking this top button here. That's going to highlight the whole thing. And then you can Control C. So let's actually do that. Control C, have our new sheet, and Control V. And now we've got that all copied. So that's an easy way to copy everything at once. Now, looks like I'm still no questions here. So I'm just going to move into the best practices, and then we can leave some time for questions at the very end if there are any. So best practice number one for reporting is start on the member statistics page. This is a good place to get high level overview of your contacts. Like I said, you're going to get that active members, the active membership. You're going to be able to see your new versus renewing members, and you can see the non-contacts and if there's anything you want to do there in terms of deleting them. The second thing is to use the list builder. So if you're looking for a custom report that we don't have, you can use the list builder to create that report often. Obviously, this, like we went over, that's not going to work for everything. It's not going to query against other reports or that kind of thing, which in that case, I would recommend submitting a ticket. So if you don't see a report, you can't figure out how to build it in the list builder, submit a ticket to the team and say, is this possible? If it's possible, we're going to help you do it. If it's something that we think can be done fairly easy with AI, we'll walk you through that as well. And if it's something that we think can be built, then we can connect you with the account manager and see if that's or I guess first we would talk to the product team, see if that's something that is simple enough to build. If it's going to be a bigger custom report, then we can connect you with the account manager and see if custom development for that report is something that you're interested in. And then finally, with AI, just give it as much context as you can. In the first one, I made it work harder than it needed to before I actually gave it information. I just said, here's basic context of what I want to do. And then it gave me a long list you saw of, stuff that wasn't really relevant for me. If I didn't know better, I would have had to read through all that before I knew that it wasn't giving me the answer I was looking for when I gave it the second question. Whereas in the second example, I gave it all the context up front. So it was able to say, yeah, here's your first steps. And I was able to work with it that way. So the more context, the better when it comes to AI, is the best practice there. And that is it from me for today. Do you have any questions? So I've got a question for the cross-checking. What is the logical next step in the workflow? What do you do with the new list? If there are 109 consents you want to delete, does the new spreadsheet you created allow Member365 to mass delete? So the next step with this specific process would be to submit a ticket to us asking us to delete them. If you have a list already of the people you want to delete, we can delete it easily. If you want to go through and delete these people right now, like I said, it is one by one. That's a very slow process. So we are implementing the checkbox feature so you can go through and Maybe as you're reading through that list, you're finding 5 or 10 people that you don't actually want to delete. And that's why you didn't want to just send it over to us without reviewing it. So you can use that box checking as the review process. Is there a way to get the member statistics for a certain point in time? Not the overall statistic is the short answer. You can get the member count, so you know how many members were there, but I think the question is more related to if you wanted to see how many people renewed in the last month and were new members in the last month. Some of those statistics that you get currently, if you could put a date in the past in and get those same statistics, unfortunately, that's not something that can be done. And that's it for questions right now. So I'll leave it for just about a minute. I'll take a sip of water and give anyone a chance to ask any final questions, and then we'll call it. Do we plan to have an engagement or stats webinar? Let me look. I believe engagement. Is there anything particular in that webinar that you would want to see? While I'm looking to see here. Just curious about getting maximum insight into member activities. Okay, great. Just checking the webinar list. Let me control F it. Yeah, I think it's actually going to be part of next week's webinar. It's optimizing engagement is the subtitle there. If it wasn't going to be, I will make sure that it's something that's touched on next week. Just to confirm or reconfirm that soft deleted contacts do not count towards the maximum number of contacts. Correct? Soft deleted are not part of the system. I also noticed that when I hard delete a contact, their name was removed from event registration. Yeah, so hard deleting, they're out of the system. So you'll notice their name is hard delete. There's no information on them. So anything that is related to them is no longer going to be there. So that might be one reason that you are wanting to keep them in the system. Otherwise, yeah, like you notice all of their information is going to be taken with a hard delete. Lots of questions coming in. This is great. On the member stats, when you change your member category, they show up as a new member. Is there something we need to change this? Good question, because they should be new membership, but not necessarily new member. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to have to talk to the team to learn a little bit more about that because, yeah, my understanding was, like I explained, there's new members and new memberships. And I guess every time there's a new membership, it's also listing them as a new member. So I'll get back to you, Lori, and let you know if there's something that changes or if that's just how it is or what's going on there. I'm still new to AI. Is it possible to save and update Gemini with context about the organization and return to it later, or does the context need to be re-entered each time? There's a long and short answer there. I'm not an expert by any means, but basically AI is still really working on maintaining context for a long period of time if it's not built off of that context. So you can build your own GPT. That's something that you're able to do. So you can put your organization information into that, and then it'll always have that context. We're actually working on that with our knowledge base right now. But in terms of just returning to the same chat, it may lose the context. You can always remind it of it, but it's not great. I'm sure this was related to something I was talking about earlier, but there's a not at the moment new user. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Is there a pre-recorded webinar on how to build a list or a on how to build a list? I'm trying to remember. So part of the knowledge base is building videos, and it's something that I've been tasked with. And I've just been updating the knowledge base because we had a big mess with transporting it. But I did start doing videos, and I believe the list builder was actually one of them. The difficulty, I'll be honest, with how to on the list builder is there's so many different pieces of the list builder that to try and do a full how to of what each piece is becomes overwhelming and then almost useless in terms of trying to find a specific part of it. But let me just do a quick look at our knowledge base to see if that one did have a video or not. Yeah, okay. So the how-to article doesn't have a video with it, but the how to delete or how to export a list, those three all have a video with them. So if you wanted to go to the how to edit a list, it'll give you a short kind of how to, but it's really just navigating to the list builder. So if you had specific questions about it, feel free to submit a ticket, or if you have chat, send a chat over and we can walk through your specific instance. It makes more sense contextually. But thank you. You're welcome. And read the list builder. It could use some improvements that a custom report builder might provide. Okay, good feedback. So I think there's some great feedback about just the list builder and report cross context in general. That will be great to bring back to the team. Again, we're always trying to improve the software, and so your feedback is very valuable. And the more that we can build stuff that's actually going to be useful for you, the better. Of course, because there is so many improvements always happening, sometimes it takes a bit of time to get to your suggestions. Unfortunately, I wish our team was big enough and fast enough to just be able to snap our fingers and make it exactly how would be the most helpful, but your feedback is always very appreciated. So thank you. All right, I think we are through the questions. I'll give it one more minute because last time I did that, kind of got into a bit of a flow there. If that is it from you, that is it from me. Thank you so much for joining me this week. And next week, I believe it'll be Christine, maybe Carlo, and one of them will be walking you through the list builder, and I'll make sure that they are touching on engagement as well. Thanks again. Have a great week.